Greetings, fellow RotoBallers. It's week 15. It's the playoffs. So here's our starts and sits this week. And Dave, my start of the week, I like this one a whole lot. Dak Prescott versus the Jags. The Jags allowing the 8th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks this year. 11 touchdowns over the last 5 games. In each of those games, 18 plus fantasy points. Dak Prescott, multi-touchdowns in 5 of his last 6, averaging 251 passing in that span. Dak Prescott, easy play. Start him up in week 15.
Love the call, Joey. And my sit is going to be our start from last week. So it only feels right to bring him back down to earth. Folks, you cannot start Jared Goff this week. The Jets have been absolutely dominant versus opposing QBs. Listen to this. They have not allowed multiple passing touchdowns since week 3. Over the last 3 games, they've allowed a league low 175 pass yards or less. It's round 1 of the playoffs, folks. Play the odds. Sit Jared Goff.
Yeah, let's move over to tight end starts. And look, I think Cole Kmet's kind of a sexy play, Dave, but start of the week for me is Dalton Schultz. Stack lunch, again, against that Jacksonville Jaguars defense. They're allowing the 9th most fantasy points to tight ends this year. 3 touchdowns over their last month and a half stretch. And look, here's the deal. They've allowed over 9 plus fantasy points to 9 different tight ends all season long. And Dalton Schultz, last week, 6 for 87. He has 6 plus receptions. 3 6+ reception games over his last 6 played, 3 touchdowns in that span. Look, Dave, that's going to get you 6 to 10, right? What are we talking about? Tight end. Got to start him up.
Joey, I just got to say, we've been kind of keeping the same order for weeks and weeks, and I'm really getting tired of talking about tight end sits, okay? It's the worst one there is. So
Take it away!
I'm just going to pick somebody. Foster Moreau. There we go. That's the guy this week. Sit him. He's coming off a hot 1 target, 0 catch, abysmal performance. Yeah, really smoking hot. Look, if you're in the playoffs and you made it with Foster Moreau, congrats, okay? But you cannot start the guy. And if for some reason Darren Waller plays and he's active, I'm not starting Waller either. New England has been much better than people think versus the tight end as of late, only giving up an average of 21 yards to the position since their bye week. Ask yourself, it's the playoffs. Should I start a guy who could get me the same amount of points if I start nobody? The answer is no. So don't do it. All right. Thank God I get to talk about wide receivers and my boy, Joey.
Out of your system.
Yes, it's been a while since Chris Olave has had a really big game. Well, I'm saying it's coming, okay? He's had back-to-back games with 65 yards or less with no scores, but having an extra week off of rest, plus Atlanta's secondary, I think this is going to set this guy up for success, okay? Atlanta, bottom 7 versus wideouts, yielding 5th most fantasy points to the position. Olave has never had less than 5 targets since Dalton's took over. I say he makes a statement, and he goes to try and reclaim that offensive rookie of the year.
Dave, let's hop over to our wide receiver sits of the week. Now, look, they're going up against a defense that's kind of been burned a little bit lately, but they still allow the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, only 7 touchdowns all season long. And you're saying to yourself, okay, DeAndre Hopkins, we can play him in PPR, right? But he's going to need a touchdown to actually win you a playoff week. And Colt McCoy, mix it together. Cardinals wide receivers, I think that is a huge sit this week. Doesn't feel good. Marquise Brown especially is a sit. DeAndre Hopkins, man, only in PPR, but man, I don't think he's going to get you a great number. Those are both sits for me in week 15.
Yeah, you got to do it, Joey. Let's talk about running back starts. Now, I know Jerick McKinnon got all the glory last week, but this sets up for an absolute smash week for Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco still outcarried McKinnon 13-6. He's been sneaky consistent too, Joey. The guy's averaging 13.2 half PPR points over his last 4 weeks. Now he gets an absolute smash spot. Worst run defense in the league. Houston Texans hand out RB1 performances for breakfast. And you want to talk about game script, Joey? Something tells me Chiefs going to be leading in this game, and look for Pacheco to get some clock chewing opportunities.
Dave, I never doubt your instincts on that one, and I'm fully on board with you. Let's go to our running back sits of the week, and it's Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert versus the Buffalo Bills. Now, this is a pass-heavy offense, right? And Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert just haven't been getting it done the last 3 weeks. They've done nothing in December. Now they're going up against a Bills defense allowing the 9th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs, only 2 receiving tutties all season long to running backs in a pass-heavy offense again. And here's the kicker. Only 5 running backs have posted more than 60-plus rushing yards against the Bills this year, and only 2 have put up 100 all-purpose yards. You're going to need a touchdown and the yards. Both those things not going in the direction for either of those players. You got to sit them down. And now, Dave, everyone take a deep breath because you're going to need a 60-second recap of our starts and sits. Starts right now. Here are our starts and sits in week 15. Start up Dak Prescott against the Jaguars. Jaguars have been great against opposing quarterbacks, and Dak has been hot lately. Start him up, green light matchup right there, and then stack lunch. Dalton Schultz versus the Jaguars. He's got 3 touchdowns over his last 6 games with 6+ receptions in 3 of those games. Start up Dalton Schultz. Chris Olave, baby, you're back. You've been down for a little bit. We think a big performance against a vulnerable Falcons secondary. And then finally start up Isaiah Pacheco. He's getting the carries in a high-powered offense. The Chiefs, they're going to score some points this week. Start him up.
Yeah, and you're leaving the following gents on the bench. Goff is going to crash and burn versus a Jets team that has not allowed a QB to surpass 175 pass yards over their last 3 games. Foster Moreau laid an egg last week. We're saying probably more of the same. Sit that guy. No Kyler, no Cardinals wideouts in your playoff lineups, folks. You got to sit those guys. And finally, Miami running backs have been a headache all year versus Buffalo, or versus all year. They're taking on Buffalo. We say the poor December trend continues. Now like, subscribe, and go in those playoffs.
Playoffs?
Do it.
Playoffs.
Yeah.
This is why we play.